We've all been there, in the middle of a job, everything going smoothly, until boom, you're missing a part. United Refrigeration is your one-stop shop for all your refrigeration needs. Use your computer or smartphone to go to www.uri.com at any time of day or night to check stock on your favorite brands, such as Copeland, Sporlan, Carlisle Compressors, Danfoss, Emerson CPC boards and sensors, Carrel, Hussmann Parts, and K2Therm. United Refrigeration Inc. is home to these brands and many more. Looking for information on refrigerant conversions or refrigerant banking? Quick access links on the homepage can get you to the information you need. All approved accounts are able to see live-to-the-minute inventory and pricing. Product not in stock at your local branch? No problem. Use the Nearby Stock feature to find a local branch that does have what you need. Are you looking for a branch address, phone number, or after-hours number? That's all available as well. Just click on the branch locator and search for your local branch. Have a model number and looking for a replacement part? www.uri.com/ARP has a vast list of quick pick replacement parts. Just search for the model number of the equipment you're working on and click the Replacement Parts tab. If you don't have an account, click the Register button and we'll have you online in no time. With more than 400 locations in North America, each United Refrigeration branch is fully stocked for immediate pickup. Our branch employees have in-depth technical knowledge, so we can help you get what you need when you need it. Visit your local store or www.uri.com/ARP today. United Refrigeration Inc. has all your solutions down cold.
I'd like to take a minute to talk about one of our sponsors, Parker Sporlan and thermostatic expansion valves. How can you guys always have the right thermostatic expansion valve for the right application without having to carry hundreds of valves in your truck? Well, that's simple. Using Sporlan's interchangeable cartridge-style valves. The Q valve for conventional and the BQ valve for balance port. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. It serves thousands of unique applications. So 1, you just select the thermostatic element for your application. 2, you select the body style you need. 3, you select the right size cartridge for the application. These easy to select and assemble valves mean you always have the right valve for the job on your truck. For more information on the Q and BQ valves, visit Sporlan.com. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the episode.
This uplifting cinematic experience.
I've got something important to tell you, man.
The big story is...
Dig this and dig it deep.
Hey, good effort. Way to go, way to go.
Dude, don't encourage him.
You assholes know I'm being sarcastic, right?
I've been called the songbird of my generation.
Holy shit.
I'm holding in a huge miss, so could you get to the point?
Terrible. Awful. I hated it.
War's over, man. Werman dropped the big one.
Bloody psychopath.
High-functioning sociopath.
Yet I never thought I'd see the day when two such highly reputable mischief makers as yourselves douse some drawers at the side of a mall security guard.
I see you got fat.
The force is strong with this one.
What are you, 8?
You're waking the neighbors up!
You still look like a 15-year-old girl, but not hot.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the Advanced Refrigeration Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Compass, along with the other host, Brett Wetzel, the host.
What's going on, guys? What's going on, man? Where are you? Dude, you've been so freaking busy. Where are you? Where are you at? What are you doing? Who are you yelling at? What are you doing?
Oh, I'm back in Chicago. I'm just running from disaster to disaster. We had quite a bit of a shit show this weekend, right as I was getting on the plane to go home from vacation, or my attempted vacation. We had a rack that we actually lost a CO2 gas cooler controller. We lost it once. It was a 326A. It shorted out. And then I went down there. I found one, because they're like, you got a better chance of winning the lottery right now than finding one. So I went down there, threw it in, and got the rack back going. And it ran for like 3 weeks, 0 issues. And then all of a sudden on Sunday, it decided to short out again.
Sweet.
Randomly. So it shorted out again. Prentice that was down there, lo and behold, got everything as well as he could. Drove 3 hours to my house to go pick up another one after I landed, put it in. We checked over a bunch of stuff. It made it 15 minutes and let the smoke out for the third time. So we had actually smoked every one of them that I know of in the United States and Canada. There is no more left.
So after the second one, you didn't rip it apart to see like what smoked, so you can kind of.
It was the whole fucking board was smoldered.
Really?
Yeah, it was like it had a hole in it.
Pictures
the first one had a hole right in the middle of the processor.
I'm done.
Yeah, we this thing was down, and I tracked it down. When he put it in, I had him disconnect the analog output signal, so I had him disconnect it, and then I had him, fired up with just a flash gas bypass valve hooked to it, and that's it. And as soon as he started to program it, it smoked. So we tracked it down to the flash gas bypass valve, was backfeeding DC power through the stepper valve somehow and to the board, shorting it out. So, I mean, that thing was pretty well fucked. So it's Sunday night. Obviously, we can't do nothing about this right now. Thank God this is at one of those big box warehouses where they have redundancy. They have a little bit of redundancy built in. So actually, got the boxes all down to temp. They lost like 1 or 2 boxes of they had to move stuff around. So not like a huge loss, but like obviously they can't sell products. But so in the morning, we kind of put some stuff together and realized that there's none of these valves in the U.S. None.
So which valve did it have in there? Danfoss?
It was an ETS 100. So United doesn't even have it in the system because it's not something they sell a lot. I mean, it's something like overseas. It's a valve from the UK basically. Mm-hmm. More based in Canada. Like, so, I mean, and basically nobody but United around us sells Danfoss. Like, I mean, no supply houses at all up here sell Danfoss.
Yeah.
So Danfoss themselves didn't have one up here.
Well, hold on. This is on the flash tank bypass. So technically, I mean, you could use a conventional CDS valve, right?
That's what I did. I took a CDS, Sporlan CDS valve, which is almost the exact same specs as this ETS valve, like almost to a T. The CDS valve had like a 40-pound higher working range, and ended up slapping that guy on there against the manufacturer's wishes because they told me it wouldn't work and it would fail.
Lies.
Yeah. I mean, they offered 0 solutions, so only negativity.
Sounds like you.
I offer negativity and solutions. I never offer negativity without solutions.
That's not full of shit.
It's not full of shit. Like, I'm saying their shit is garbage, and this is what they need to do to fix it. It's positive negativity.
You're such an.
Okay, so the 326A situation was still screwing us. I mean, I ended up getting some microthermal boards, and Microthermal has their own control for the flash gas and flash tank bypass. Came out like last year, maybe a year before that. So it's a 2-valve controller. I ended up taking that, retrofitting the 326A controller into this, and I had to rewire a bunch of stuff. I had to figure out the Danfoss to Sporlan conversion to convert all the wires over, because you got to flip the white and black wire around in order to drive a Danfoss valve from a microthermal or like an SMA. So if it's a Danfoss like EEPR, electronic EPR, EEV, you got to flip the black and white wire around. Get that back all going. It was like, I don't know, like 7:00 last night. I finally got the rack back going. So, I mean, it ran beautiful. It actually ran better with the microthermal control than it did with the Danfoss controller, which is surprising. And I barely tuned it. I just got it going enough last night, and then I drove 3.5 hours home in the middle of nowhere.
So if you would have technically hooked that other valve up, you would have smoked that 326, right? And then you didn't have another one, and you would have attempted to put that on there. You would have smoked the microthermal port, which would have told you, hey, valve's done, valve's bad. But you told me something interesting about the valve, and I want to make sure you press on this, because you said the one controller ran for a couple weeks, and you had a theory why, and tell us why the valve was bad.
So my theory was, like, I tracked it down on microthermal. Like, it's not so much a theory. I proved it. So the valve, both times it blew was when it got to like 70 degrees outside. So what was happening is the load in the flash tank was increasing tremendously, and the valve was driving a lot more. So it was driving open more. And the thing was like loose as a goose. Like, it fell apart as soon as I took it apart. Like, I could take the motor drive. I could take the drive on the motor, and I could move it around like 3/4 of an inch inside. I could just twirl it with my fingers. It was clapped.
So basically, the higher the temperature means that it would be running transcritical more, which means it would open up the flash tank bypass to compensate for a little bit more.
We never hit the fact that we never hit transcritical. I mean, it just the load on the flash tank increased.
Yeah.
So it just couldn't handle the driving, and it was average open like 20%. Like, when it had issues, it started open to like 50 to 70%. So that's why that's my theory on why it was quiet for a little bit. I mean, it ohmed out fine. If you ohmed a valve out, even if it's in my truck, if you ohm it out, it's fine. But if it drives, it would end up shorting out. I mean, it was pretty much instantly. And my theory here is that 326A, all the newer ones, I'm pretty sure they're like cheap Chinese parts in there. I mean, they probably can't get the semiconductor. I've been seeing electronics like burn up like nonstop where it would normally take a short. I mean, I'm pretty sure like whatever semiconductors they had in there is probably some like cheap Chinese junk that
well, it's supply and demand, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, they can't get it. I mean, the microthermal board probably would have took it. It would have told you right away. It would have protected itself. Like, it has diagnostics. Yeah, it'll shut itself down before. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, speaking of Danfoss, I'm in Jacksonville this week, and I was driving back from the shop, and I was looking on LinkedIn and saw that Dave Yoder has a podcast. Did you see this?
Yeah, I've listened to it a couple times.
But it's good. It's good.
Yeah, maybe we can finally get that on.
Yeah, talk about some of the little problems with the 880.
Sure.
Tonight. What are we talking about? I have something written down, but that's not it.
Yeah, you have the fucking attention span of a squirrel.
I do.
Okay, we're going to talk about how to clean up dirty rack, guys. I've been seeing like a lot of posts on there lately of like sucked in filters, destroyed filters, blown temp rights. So we're going to go over how to clean up a dirty rack and how to kind of clean up with what you have at hand. Okay, so say you got a bunch of like screens plugging up. We're not talking like post-construction cleanup. We'll go over that separately. But like, I'm talking like you have a rack, it's plugging screens, your suction temp's hot. Okay, so obviously a dirty rack is a problem. I mean, plug and filter dryers. This is the way I look at this. I mean, if you're only treating the symptom of the rack plugging up, or like dryers plugging up or cases plugging up, and you're only cleaning screens or changing dryers out when it happens. I mean, you're not fixing the problem. You're fixing the problem at hand. You're not fixing the real problem. So the way I look at this is, if I get a store where I start plugging screens, say like, okay, if I have like 3 or 4 screens plug in a couple days, or I get a bunch of plug dryers at a store where it normally doesn't happen, or it's, say it does happen a lot, I'm going to take a look at things. Look at the rack. I mean, until the rack is cleaned up, I mean, this is where the trash is coming from. Where is it coming from? Number one. Okay. What does the oil look like? Because the majority of the stuff is coming probably from the oil. So, I mean, are we running high? Go ahead, Brett.
And also seeing what you're seeing as you're opening that up, right? Like if you see black carbony stuff, that's going to indicate one thing, right? If you go to clean out the screen, you think it's just dirt, but it ends up like sticking to there where you actually legitimately have to use some kind of contact cleaner. That's indicative of wax, and wax is usually indicative of moisture, right? And speaking of like seeing stuff on the internet, I've seen a bunch of stuff like people have been posting like inside of compressors, and in the past month, I've probably seen about 20 or 30 pictures where like you see just really, really bad copper plating. Like Don Gillis showed a crank on like a small little K body. Every single journal on the crank was just coppered up on there. People taking pictures of some of the heads where you get that red, that dark red tinge. Just a boatload of freaking moisture in some of these systems. No, but I mean, it legitimately makes sense. What do you do? So when you have a dirty system, obviously you're going to change the filter dryers. You're going to put high acid filters in there, and sometimes you have to do some other things. So in the suction canisters, sometimes putting high charcoal filters in there for the time being. Sometimes.
So I will do this a little differently with that. Like, okay, so depending on what it is, if it's carbon or like bearing particles, like say a compressor grenaded, or it's valve plate material, like a scroll just ate itself, like every protocol.
Yeah.
So Sporlan actually makes a new kit that goes inside of the dryer shells. So you could buy the replacement like guts. So change your dryer shells while you buy the replacement guts. You could buy like, I think it's a 1 or 5 micron filter that goes over that. Like, so the new style like screen is that long shaft. Okay. Like the whole shaft is the screen, not just the end plate. So you could buy a filter that goes inside that goes over that screen. Dude, it catches everything.
But it blocks up quick as hell. We had a rack. Good.
That's what we want. We want it to block up quick. I mean,
no.
we want it to catch everything. I mean, so number one thing I'm focusing on, I'm getting my liquid. Okay. You want to go where the flow is. You're going to get your liquid. You want to get them, your filters changed out a couple times, put that pre-filter on there. Okay. Then I'm going to hit my oil. Okay. I'm going to clean up that oil. If I have a super dirty rack, I don't like throwing Sporlan oil filters on there. I like the suction filters. It seems like they catch a ton more, like the SF283s like Husband used to use. So I will use those to clean up. They're a lot cheaper. So I'll use the SF283s to clean up. They seem to do a lot better job of like cleaning up like big debris. So like they plug up, but it seems like they maybe last a little bit longer, and they maybe get everything a little bit cleaner. I don't know if it's the actual suction filter like set up inside of it and not just being an oil filter. So it seems to clean up a lot better, and you could buy 2 of them for 1 oil filter. So once I get the oil cleaned up, then I'll switch it out to an OF303 or the RF filter.
So
I want to get that oil.
Sorry, the strainer he's talking, like the the kit that he's talking about is it's basically it's the same length as the inside of the filter dryer, because you're going to buy it based off the, what model number filter dryer setup you have, the canister. But basically, it slides right over the metal mesh screen, and it's like a white material. Almost looks like an air filter material, almost, right? And then at the top and bottom, the chrome at the top and bottom, and just slides right over there.
Yeah, I mean, it works good. Like if I'm doing a retrofit, like I put them on before we start the retrofit. That way I can kind of catch the stuff as it goes. But that thing is tremendously helpful on cleaning up. Okay, getting the oil cleaned up. I'm not a big fan of doing oil changes. I think it's kind of useless, especially if it's POE oil. I'll just try to clean it up with using oil filters. I may change them a couple times, maybe once a day till I get the debris cleaned up, depending on what it is. If I get a reed breakup and it's in a separator, I mean, dude, it could take like 3 or 4 like oil filter changes, like at one every day before you get all that crap out of there. You want the filter to plug up. Do not, I will say this again, do not use the bypass filters. Especially if you got a dirty rack. I mean, this is where I usually see these racks get out of controls with the bypass filters, because I mean, it's bypassing, it's plugged. I mean, it's bypassing. It's not doing its job anymore. So it's bypassing that oil in there, and that oil is dirty. Well, next thing you know, now it's plugging up all your screens. So I will go through, and depending on how dirty the rack is, say if it's filthy and I'm getting oil issues and plug screens, I start from the beginning. I get my liquid filters changed. I get that new assembly in there. And then depending on how bad it is, I will drain down the compressors by pumping the oil back into the reservoir or wherever. And I will pull the sump screens, clean all the sump screens. Okay. Get all the sump screens cleaned, get everything, vacuumed down, get all the sump screens cleaned, get all the garbage out of the bottom of the compressors, get the oil cleaned up. Okay. And then once that's on there, I'm checking my suction filter pressure drops. If they're installed, I mean, I'm pretty diligent about that on PMs, making sure I don't have a huge pressure drop in my suction filters, because that will kill a rack. I mean, you're making heat. You're not getting that cold suction gas coming back. You have a pressure drop. It's inefficient. So what you want to do is make sure those suction filters, if you're leaving them in, make sure there's no pressure drop on there. I mean, otherwise pull them. If you have a dirty rack, I will pull those and open them up and change them, and or throw in liquid cores in them. So I'll put liquid cores in them, and it'll they don't last long doing that. They'll plug up real quick, but I mean, they catch a lot of stuff in there. Go ahead, Brett.
So 2 things. So if you have a hot gas defrost or cool gas defrost, are you doing anything to the discharge line? Like if you continually have blocked filters on your strainers on your TXVs, I've seen where people have put in a dryer shell on the discharge line of that gas going over there, and to basically prevent any of that shit bypassing, because if you're coming right off the discharge, you're not being filtered by the liquid. Yeah, you're being filtered by the suction a little bit, but you're potentially moving all that shit around. And the follow-up to that is, what do you do when you have wax build up in your pipes so bad that it's gumming up the valves? And, even after you've changed out the filters a bunch of times.
Hello, guys. This episode is brought to you by Fieldpiece. Fieldpiece's next generation of vacuum pumps will cut down on evacuation time and make oil changes on the fly a breeze. They are lightweight, durable, and feature 4 inline ports plus a large oil reservoir. Get pumped about these 3 new Fieldpiece vacuum pumps available at distributors now. Learn more at fieldpiece.com or follow us on social media at Fieldpiece Products. Thanks again, and thanks for listening.
Today's episode is sponsored by the new Reefer Shield differential pressure monitor from Westermeyer Industries. When the filter element of your coalescing oil separator is contaminated, it can hurt your system's performance and efficiency. But how do you know when it's time to replace that filter? Wait too long to replace, and you could end up with a nasty filter blowout. But replacing too often can be a waste of time and money. The answer is installing a differential pressure monitor. The new Reefer Shield RDP-01 differential pressure monitor is available now from Westermeyer Industries. To find out more information, email sales@westermeyerind.com. That's sales@westermeyerind.com.
Hello guys, this episode is brought to you by Fieldpiece. Fieldpiece's next generation of vacuum pumps will cut down on evacuation time and make oil changes on the fly a breeze. They are lightweight, durable, and feature 4 inline ports plus a large oil reservoir. Get pumped about these 3 new Fieldpiece vacuum pumps available at distributors now. Learn more at fieldpiece.com or follow us on social media at Fieldpiece Products. Thanks again, and thanks for listening. Hey guys, this is question number 1 for the monthly giveaway. We're giving away a Fieldpiece wireless vacuum gauge, the MG44. Question number 1. What is the maximum cylinder temperature that you're allotted to have before oil starts breaking down? Thanks guys, and keep listening. Make sure you email your answer to arpgiveaways@gmail.com. Once again, that's arpgiveaways@gmail.com.
Yeah, so I mean, I remember me and you asked that, and Sporlan, replied that their shells are only, I think it was good to like 200 degrees, but the liquid cores were good too.
Yeah.
Was they're rated to? So I mean, technically you're probably get away with doing it. I have done it on a cool gas rack. I have added a shell dryer to a cool gas rack to clean it up that we had. That was absolutely a filthy abortion.
Any kind of hot gas where it's bypassing wherever the hell it wants to go during defrost, it might not be getting filtered. So you end up you're wondering why. You're like, why isn't it getting clean? I've changed the filters. I changed the coalescing filter on the separator 60 times. Like, why isn't all the shit coming out?
So like it's like oil problems, for example. Like everybody's trying to figure out why is the oil keep coming back to smash this compressor every time. Why is it this compressor every time? I don't care why it's that compressor. I care why the oil is leaving the rack to smash compressors. Like the same thing with the rack is dirty. Yeah, the rack is these everything's plugging up in the field. Like, yeah, it's getting taken out there by the hot gas defrost, but why is it in the rack to begin with? That's where you need to think from. You need to get that rack cleaned up and running properly before you could, make this problem go away. Like you can't just like change the filters and be like, yeah, the problem's going to go away. We change all the filters. Why is the rack dirty in the first place? Is it running high discharge temps? I mean, is the superheat too high? Are we cooking the oil? Do we have compressors that are, oil failure controls are jumped out or not running properly? Are we burning up bearings?
No, this one was we had, I think within 3 or 4 weeks we had internal short, basically, the rotor. I don't know if I think the rotor smashed in the stator and shorted it because of bad bearing wear because of non-condensables and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but even then, like, okay, yeah, like that happened there. But like the majority of these stores I see, especially older independents, older stores, I mean, they're so neglected with like the discharge temps. And I mean, guys, PMs with discharge temps are like super important. Like you could use that Copeland mobile app and you can go in there and you could type in your conditions, your return gas temps, your suction pressure, your discharge pressure. It'll tell you within like 10 degrees of what your discharge temp should be. If I'm doing a PM, I'll quickly like punch that in there and I'll check my discharge temps. If I got one that's like way higher than that, you could have a blown valve plate. I mean, there's so many valve plates blown on compressors that guys miss and don't see. And then it ends up causing heat and breaking down oil. And then next thing you know, you have carbon and burned up oil. And then you're plugging up oil floats and everything else. But I mean, the biggest thing is to get all the trash out of the rack and then start cleaning it up. Is like, I am a big proponent of getting the dryer out of the case. I do not want dryers in cases or walk-ins. Nothing pisses me off more than, going to set superheats or doing commissioning or like doing startup. And I look in there's a fucking dryer in there and the damn thing's fucking, I don't know if it's plugged or not, or if it's plugged. Now I got to break out a torch. Now I got to cut the dryer out and I got to hard pipe it. I mean, if you got a strainer, like obviously most supermarkets should have like a Sporlan valve with a strainer built into it or a removable strainer. Like there's no point in having a dryer at the case. Dryers belong at the rack where they're serviceable. where you don't have to break out a torch and come in there and burn on a dryer in a case or in a walk-in. I want that thing where I could just clean a screen in 10 minutes. It's 10 minutes versus 2 hours. I mean, do you not agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd rather have expansion valves with the strainers in there any day. That's why I don't understand why all the electronic valves are not required to actually have the strainers, right? So you have,
Almost. You know, like they have that Sporlan EV with the strainer, and I've seen
yes.
less fail than I have the straight through valves with the internal strainer.
So the difference is they just have one extra S on there. So usually the valve is like an SER, double A, A, SERA. In this instance, it's for the strainer, it's SSER and then the number.
And you're not getting one unless it's an OEM.
Really?
Yeah, like you can't like just go get there's too much of a demand. Like they're not shipping to supply houses. Those are OEM only valves right now. Like they can't even keep up with the supply chain. They can't even keep up with the OEMs. So that's the only thing that sucks about those valves if you do have one fail. But like I've seen less failures with those than any of the other ones.
How comes more manufacturers don't make an easy strainer that's in line that looks like a conventional strainer on like a chiller system or something? You know what I mean? Like a serviceable Y strainer that's not so difficult. Like anyone that I've ever worked on has just been a bear to take apart.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like the whole Target thing with the inline strainers. Like I don't get that. Like the strainer before the strainer. Like
you're not the customer.
Yeah.
You don't make the rules.
Yeah, I mean, you got a strainer in front of a strainer, but what do I know? But yeah, dryers in the cases. I mean, dryers in the cases make the problem worse because they start plugging up over time, and you lose performance, and then they lead to more rack issues, more overheating. I mean, so especially like if you guys are having something plug, say you have a case that's running warm, it's one case in the lineup. Don't just do the one case, do the whole lineup. Cut all the dryers out of the entire lineup or change all the dryers in the entire lineup because if one's plugged, I guarantee you the other ones are not far behind.
So, oh yeah, no, and I remember now. So what are you doing when you have an excessive amount of wax going through the system from, let's just say, the condenser on? What's your fix for that? You're not going to pump down the whole system and blow a shit ton of RX-11 flush in there. What are you going to do?
I mean, the only thing you do is throw in wax dryers. That's the only thing I've seen. But I mean, wax is that's like a mineral oil thing. You shouldn't have wax with POE oil.
So from these burnouts on this rack, they had there was wax all over the place. So we even had a problem. It was so severe we actually had a problem with split, and I personally rebuilt the check valve, and probably I think like 2 or 3 weeks later it failed again.
I don't think that's wax though, because I don't think you could have wax in a POE oil system. If you could have it in a mineral oil system or an alkybenzene oil system, I don't think you could have wax. That's just like what you're seeing is just like gummed up oil,
Yes.
like oil, basically. It's like carbon and oil mixed together. Like it almost makes it look like nylog almost.
So when it shorted, it fucking shorted through maybe potentially through the oil, and then causing that buildup to be in there, right?
Yeah, it's like the consistency of nylog, basically. It's like thicker, stickier.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, absolutely.
That is oil and carbon mixed together.
Earwax. It's basically earwax. That's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, like it's I mean, the only way you can clean that up is with wax filters and just getting it all out. Like, I mean, just pulling part. I mean, we've had stores where we've had that issue before, and it's the only way we get it out is like taking stuff apart and cleaning it. Like major valves that it gets stuck in, it seems to get stuck in the discharge line and like the drop leg for some reason. Like the drop leg holdbacks, like I find those all the time that they're gummed up like that, like where they won't regulate or like they stick. You'll find the port is all jammed up with that stuff. So I mean, just taking brake cleaner to it and like cleaning it up. I mean, it seems to clean up pretty quick. But I mean, the only thing you could do is deal with the problem that caused it, and then get it cleaned up. I mean, wax is like, I mean, it's like acid. I mean, so throwing their acid filters and stuff. I mean, just checking that. I mean, in those acid test kits, don't use like the little like quick cheapy ones. Get the legitimate acid test kits. And I mean, I'm a big proponent of like getting oil tested too. I mean, I think all racks, especially that are, you know, maintenance customers, those racks should get a legitimate oil sample test kit done every year. Not like the ones you go for United to get. Like, I'm talking like a legitimate sample test kit. You can buy them at United, you could buy them at other places, but like a legitimate test kit where it goes to a lab and they could tell you, okay, you have acid in the oil, you have like, this is your ppm of metal in the oil. Like, you could tell if bearings are breaking down. Like, you could tell like the makeup of the oil. You could tell if it's overheated. Like, getting a legitimate oil sample done. Yeah, everything to do with how clean the system is, burnouts, just general cleanness. Like, I've seen oil like turn yellow just from the way the system is. I mean, just because it's CO2 doesn't mean anything. I mean, it turns dark, it turns colors. Like, I mean, we have 404 racks that are clear. You know, we have newer refrigerant racks that are clear. Like, usually when I see yellow oil, it's usually either dyed or it has it's had a bunch of burnouts in it.
Yeah.
I mean, the CO2 oil is just, it's still POE oil. It's just 85 weight.
Yeah.
But yeah, just going through, and the biggest thing, you guys, is getting everything cleaned up. I see suction filters all the time that are blown out. Like, I don't know how many racks that we just did some case change out to the store, and like part of the store's thing is you got to change all the filters when you're done, no matter what you do. If it's one case in the rack, you got to change the liquid, the oil, and the suction filters. So I mean, I pull these filters out, and I know when I'm cutting bolts off a suction shell, they haven't been done in forever. So if you're cutting bolts off, there's a good chance if you don't see the guts in the motor room, those things are probably still in there, and they are probably 10 years old. I mean, I did a gas change out, and I probably had I think on one rack we had 12 compressors. I had 9 crushed filters.
Damn. So,
and there was 6 head compressors. That were 3 were changed, and 2 had died twice already, and nobody ever changed the suction filters, and they were black as a tire, and they were crushed, and they were oil logged.
So typically after startup, they're supposed to yank them out.
Depends on the customer. Yeah,
all the customers I've seen the spec for.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. There's a lot of customers where they don't want them out,
which makes sense.
I mean, they're there for a reason, but I mean, yeah, there's a lot of customers that don't want them out. I mean, I usually, depending on what it is, like I usually will change them after the first week. I'll change it on startup. I'll change all the dryers, get the suction filters in. I mean, and if the suction filter is clean, when I pull it, I just usually leave it out. And I zip tie the spring to the outside of it, so that way somebody knows it's out and pulled.
And then it never gets lost, because they usually end up in a box or somewhere in the rack, and they end up getting tossed next time they clean the motor room.
I'll tell you what, it's a pain in the ass to get the springs.
Is it really?
Yeah, I mean, try getting them through a supply house. It's a pain in the ass. So I mean,
I've had a bunch of liquid canister filters. The centerpiece, I'm not sure what they're calling it, but basically the strainer that's in the center blow out. Huh?
Yeah. Or the newer ones where they break with the people don't crank down on them because it'll pull the like the newer style Sporlan ones. If you crank down on it real hard, I mean that's just a pressed fitting in the end, like where it's in the screen, so it'll pull right out.
Really? No, the problem we were having was just bad, dirty systems, just eating shit and causing a ridiculous amount of blockage in them.
Yeah, you can get those one screens at United. Like you buy a pack, like I think they come in like a pack of 10 or something from Sporlan. You could buy those the screens for the older strainers and the Danfoss ones. Mm-hmm. The Sporlan ones and the Danfoss ones. But the Danfoss wants them to plug up like nonstop.
I'm talking about the ones in the center. I'm not talking about the one at the end, because the one in the end, they make two different metal meshes. They make a one that's like a screen door, which is really, really fine, and then they have another one, which is the typical one that's in there that looks like it's what, a 16th of an inch between the spacing or something.
Yeah, I'd rather. I would rather have a finer screen and change the dryers more than have to deal with not getting it. I mean, but again, they will blow out. Like I've seen them blow out. The Danfoss ones seem to plug up like nonstop though. Like that screen, whatever they have on there, is like super fine. Like the dryers will be like super clean, but the screen's doing like most of the work.
Really?
Yeah. But yeah, just keeping everything clean is the biggest thing. Keeping the discharge temps down. Guys don't realize like how much discharge temps, will just tank a rack.
Yeah, well, the oil starts breaking down at like, is it wait, hold on, is it 300 or 275? It's whatever the cylinder temperature is.
300-ish. I mean,
300.
Yeah, you want your compressors running cooler. I mean, who wants to be in a motor room sweating their ass off because like the compressors are just overheating and it's hot and burning you and just hate your life at that point.
Well, that's awful.
Yeah. 2:00 in the morning and there's nasty oil everywhere.
Not in your, not if you're in a Kalos motor room.
I don't get it.
Because every single motor room that they show that they're always redoing looks like you can eat off the freaking floor.
Oh yeah, we're doing those right now. Let me tell you, the Hotsie. That's the key. The Hotsie pressure washer. Let me tell you, the Hotsie pressure washer it'll also cut a head cooling fan wire in half. Learn that the hard way.
It'll also short out a rack really bad.
Well, I usually keep the rack running so that way I know if I fuck something up. we were doing one time. I mean, that's another thing, keeping this like thing clean on the outside too. We were the Walmart guys were coming around doing the power washing. They got those sweet ass Hotsie pressure washers. They got this like mini like Hotsie gun. So I got in there. I'm like, hey, can I borrow that for a minute? Because this rack room was filthy. Like we had the Walmart tech there at the time right before they all got let go. He was a hoarder. So we made him clean out. This is his home store. We made him clean all the shit out of the rack house, and like he had like a storage unit next to it. So there was actually a construction dumpster there. So it was like an episode of Hoarders. We were out there making him throw things away. Like, I mean, we found like compressors that were like 6 years old that like, scrolls that like never got installed. But, like, dude, he's like, oh, I may need this. Nope, it's going in the dumpster. Like controls, like parts that were like, we found parts from like the 90s that were like brand new. Like, I'm like, nope, just throw it in the dumpster. You haven't used it in 20 years. It's going in the dumpster.
Like what kind of stuff? See that?
Like, I mean, coils and like electrical parts, like contact. I'm going to put a 20-year-old contactor in.
But it's still good. It just came out of the box.
So like we had two apprentices there. We get everything cleaned out. And like I'm in there with the Hotsie just going to town on this thing. Well, I hit one of the fucking head cooling fan wires and it ripped it out. And it was 460. And it sounded like a hand grenade.
Take out the fuse?
Oh, I took their fucking rack main out. The whole rack house went dark.
I did that once at a chocolate plant. I was cleaning a coil on a A-frame York, I think like a 65 or 75 horse chiller, and so each side was its own circuit. So I'd shut off one circuit, start cleaning the condensers because it would just pack with chocolate dust, and I went over to the other side and was doing the same thing. And all of a sudden it got real quiet. I'm like, what the hell happened to the chiller? And the guy comes rushing out, one of the maintenance guys. He's like, what did you do? I'm like, I was just cleaning the coil. Why? He's like, because you just took out the MDP and the bus duct actually shook because the wires shook whenever it shorted out. So I opened it up because like I was like nowhere near any kind of electrical. Well, in the top of the York chillers, there's a little 90 there. and that little 90 gets a lot of heat from the condenser. So the little rubber grommet didn't really exist anymore. And I got like a tablespoon of water, maybe a teaspoon on a 5-amp contactor and 460. It just shorted the shit out of it.
Yeah, I've blown myself up quite a few times doing that. But I mean, the hot seat just like instantly like cleans all that stuff up. I mean, but yeah, just getting that stuff clean, guys, keeping those condensers clean, and just going through and getting those filters changed. I mean, that's the first part of it, but you got to fix the problem first. Same thing with like dropping separator floats. I think a separator float should be dropped every single year and the separator checked and cleaned. I mean, that you got to figure that thing is holding the majority of the shit.
If you're going to spend the time to drop it, what is your thought? So, I mean, my thought is on a PM, if you're going to end up, if that, the oil and everything else is just nasty, are you just going to drop it and replace it? Or are you going to drop it, clean it, and put it back in?
Depends. It really does depend. Like I mean, how new is it? Do I have a gasket? How pissed off am I going to be trying to get the gasket off? How mad am I in general? I mean, if I could even find, nowadays you're probably lucky if you even find a float.
True. No, I don't know. I'm asking because, usually if I have the guys drop it, I'm like, if you're going to drop it anyway and you're potentially going to damage it while you're taking out or finding out it's damaged while you actually have it out and now you need one, just
don't take it apart like a savage, like Jesus.
What's that?
Don't take it apart like a savage and you'll be fine. I mean, you don't got to beat on it with a sledgehammer. I mean, I've kicked the shit out of an oil separator trying to get that thing to feed at 2:00 in the morning.
Why? I don't understand. So explain to me why anyone thinks that's going to work.
Oh, dude, I've had that work way more than your back feeding the float thing.
Bullshit.
Oh, dude, I will go in there with a sledgehammer and I will beat that thing like it owes me money. Especially at 2:00 in the morning, you get a little bit of your frustration out as you're just hammering on that oil separator. Then you hear that whoo, it starts feeding. You're like, oh my god, thank God. I'm telling you, I got a 4-pound sludge in there. I will beat that thing like it owes me money. Don't laugh, it works.
Agree to disagree.
I mean, I will usually, if there's no float in the rack room, I will usually get a float, replace it, and then I will clean the float, and I will leave it in the rack room with a spare gasket. But you probably don't leave a gasket there, do you?
Of course I do. If I don't use it, I'm a hoarder. I save everything. If I already have one, I'm not gonna keep multiples. I'll leave it. I'll leave it in the motor room. Dude, I hate going to the supply house.
Yeah, I don't really go to the supply house.
What did you say? I'm the guy that what?
You're the guy leaving the trash all over the rack rooms?
No. You might find a rogue Red Bull can here or there.
Red Bull cans and cigarette butts everywhere. Don't lie to me.
I'm quitting. Like down to like 2 packs a week. I'm doing really good. That's why I'm getting fat.
You've been grumpy too.
Pot calling the kettle.
I'm not grumpy. I'm cheerfully grumpy. Remember this? What was said the other day. But all right, guys, that'll be a wrap on cleaning up racks. So thanks for listening, guys. Until the next one.
See you guys.
How'd you do that? It's actually, I'm not even mad. That's amazing.
Well, they say all good things come to an end.
What's that got to do with this show?
Are these seats taken? No, take them!